It was a night like any other. The rain pattered against the window, soothing, almost hypnotic. Inside the small, quiet house, Julia sat by the window in her favorite chair, her legs tucked beneath her. The storm had been relentless for hours, but she didn't mind. There was something comforting about the rain, something that made her feel safe, cocooned in her own thoughts. She hadn't been in this house long, only a few weeks. It had belonged to her grandmother, a place that had always felt a little odd. But Julia needed space. She needed solitude. And so, here she was, in the dimly lit living room, the soft flicker of candlelight dancing against the walls. But tonight, something felt different. The house, normally so still, was shifting. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. A creak of the floorboards upstairs, a soft whisper she couldn't quite make out. But it wasn't the storm. She shook her head, trying to brush it off. It's nothing, she thought. But as she stared out into the rain-slicked yard, the feeling persisted. A faint sound from above. It was nothing, surely. Just the house settling. But the air felt heavier now. Thick, charged. And then, she heard it. A whisper! So faint, it could have been the wind. Or her imagination. It was getting late. The clock on the wall ticked slowly, each second stretching longer. Julia rose from her chair, stretching her arms above her head, her eyes glancing toward the dark hallway leading upstairs. The house seemed unusually quiet now, the rain masking any sounds from outside. She made her way into the kitchen to make some tea. As she turned the kettle on, the quiet returned, almost too quiet. And then it came again. This time, clearer. Her name. Spoken in a voice she didn't recognize. She turned quickly toward the hallway. But no one was there. Her pulse quickened, and she tried to dismiss the thought. Perhaps it was the wind. Perhaps it was just a trick of her mind, a sound carried from the storm. But as she poured her tea, the whisper came again, louder, closer. Julia, come upstairs. Her heart skipped a beat. The air felt colder. A chill ran down her spine. With trembling hands, Julia placed the cup of tea down on the counter. She wasn't sure what she expected, but her feet moved almost of their own accord toward the staircase. A part of her wanted to ignore it. But curiosity, or maybe something else, pushed her forward. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, a sudden gust of wind howled through the house, making the windows rattle. The light flickered. She took a deep breath, then slowly started up the stairs. The floor creaked beneath her as she ascended, each step seeming louder than the last. She wasn't sure what she was expecting to find, but at the top of the stairs she felt a strange sensation, as if someone, or something, was standing just out of view. And then there it was, a faint outline in the hallway. The door to her grandmother's bedroom was slightly ajar. Had she left it open? She didn't remember. With her heart pounding in her chest, Julia approached the door. As she reached for the handle, the whisper came again, clearer this time. Julia, you shouldn't have come. The voice was chilling now, a mixture of anguish and something darker. It wasn't her grandmother's voice. It wasn't anyone's voice she recognized. Her hand hesitated on the doorknob, but she turned it. The door opened with a groan, revealing the dimly lit room. The rain against the window cast faint shadows across the floor. Julia stepped in cautiously. The room smelled faintly of lavender and dust, just as it had when she was a child. But something was off. There, at the edge of the bed, stood an old rocking chair. It was rocking slowly, as though someone had just gotten up from it. And on the floor next to it, a broken photograph. The edges were frayed and yellowed with age. She bent down to pick it up. It was a picture of her grandmother, standing with a man Julia didn't recognize. A man whose eyes were completely black. Julia's breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she turned around. The chair had stopped rocking. The whisper returned. Julia backed away from the bed, her feet stumbling over the floor. The room felt colder, as if something unseen was pressing in from all sides. Then, suddenly the temperature dropped. Her breath became visible in the air, cold and thick. The whispers grew louder, overlapping each other, filling the room. Leave. Leave now, you don't belong here. Her hands shook as she stumbled back toward the door. She couldn't explain it, but she knew. She knew she had to get out. As she reached the threshold, she glanced over her shoulder. The rocking chair began to move again, slowly, back and forth. But this time, the chair wasn't empty. The house was quiet once more, but Julia wasn't sure if it was ever truly empty again.